Hello, my name is Iolani Haleski. I'm the naturalist for St. Johns County Parks and Rec. I was cruising around looking at McCullough Creek and a few other places around here, making some videos, and I decided to stop in this, it's actually a private conservation area. I pulled in here and there's a sign. The owner is a good friend of mine. Let's go see if he's home. Actually, there he is. Hey, Mike.
Good afternoon, sir.
How you doing, Mike?
Excellent. How about you?
I was just talking about you.
That's what I understand.
Is it okay if we come by and check out the place?
Yeah, welcome to my property. You've been back here many times with your naturalist group.
That's right. Master Naturalist Program. We've done a ton of them back here.
Yep. And it's been a lot of fun, and I think we've learned a lot. And I've always enjoyed having the groups out here and that type of thing. And
well, what is this place? Tell me about the name.
Yep. It's Saturiwa Conservation Area.
All right.
And the name is taken from a Timucuan Indian chief that used to move up and down this area along the St. Johns River. And he was actually the first Native American to meet the French explorers in Jacksonville.
Oh, wow.
So he's a pretty significant character in this region, but he would travel up and down the St. Johns River here and dug out canoes and trading with different groups and villages and things like that.
So why did you use the name for this place?
I kind of made it like a memorial in respect
beautiful.
of his property and what he was doing here and everything like that.
So what are you doing on this property that makes it special?
Well, for me, I was initially looking for a home site here, 10 or 20 acres or something like that, and then I ended up with 94 acres of forest land to include some swamp and cypress ponds and things like that. And what we see here that we're standing in the middle of is a pine forest, and most of it is slash pine now, but what I'm hoping to do is restore it to the native longleaf, which was the type of forest when Saturiwa was here, and restore it to the native longleaf to include the wiregrass communities and all those animals that would live in a longleaf pine forest.
That's amazing. And the longleaf pine forest used to stretch all the way to South Carolina and all the way to Louisiana.
Right. It went from southern Virginia down into the Florida Peninsula, all the way over to West Texas.
Well, it sounds like you have a bunch of habitats around here. Do you mind showing us around a little bit?
Yeah, let's go take a look. Follow me.
Awesome.
This is another very unique habitat that's on my property out in Elkton. And you can see it's kind of open behind me here. This is, the common name for this is like Cypress Dome or Cypress Pond. And you can see it's a depressional area from the surrounding land around it. It might be 1, 2, 3 feet difference in this little depressional area. And during the wet season, there could be 1 to 3 feet of water in here.
Wow.
And you can see we got hydrophytic vegetation around the perimeter. We have cypress in here, black gum, some red maple, sweet gum, water oak, all the wetland plants. But one of the reasons it's called a cypress dome is because of the shape of the vegetation on the canopy of this dome. Around the perimeter, the vegetation is shorter.
Okay.
And in the center, where we are here, in the center of this cypress dome, the trees are taller because there's more water. So as you look at this from a distance, it appears to be a dome shape or have a crown to it or something like this.
Like a bell almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But this is a very unique habitat. I call it a microhabitat. This one is only about 1/4 of an acre in size.
Yep.
But Iolani, in the summertime, this little cypress dome is like an orchestra with amphibians.
Beautiful.
You have the tenors over here, the basses over here, the altos over here, and the sopranos over here.
What's the best time of year, would you say?
Well, about summertime, you know, once
around
we
this
get
time.
once we get into that rainy season,
Beautiful.
which is what we're getting ready to get into, hurricane season, if you will. And once we get a little bit of water in here, when that sun goes down, everybody comes out and they start singing.
That's beautiful.
So it's really a unique habitat here, and I'm very excited because I have about 9 of these isolated wetlands on the property. This is probably the smallest one, again at about 1/4 of an acre. I have another one closer to the road that's about 5 acres in size.
Well, we're really close to McCullough Creek, and then right around the corner is Deep Creek Preserve, which is miles of swamp area.
Yep. Between these conservation lands around me here, it's almost 8,000 acres of land that's preserved for recreation and wildlife, water resources, and habitat.
Well, can we check out some more areas?
Yeah, let's continue on.
Mike, what is this? This is like a new project.
Yeah, Iolani, this is really exciting. My wife has been interested in bees now for many, many years. And this spring, she decided to take on a little hive project here and This is her first start at it.
Wow.
My wife Carol's been interested in them for years, as I said, and she got started with this, and so far business is pretty good.
Yeah.
The sources of pollen in a forest like this are just amazing.
I bet.
They go in the pine forest, which we've talked about, but the wetlands down closer to the river there, it's just loaded with pollen and that type of thing. And there's a particular tree down there that produces a very famous honey called Tupelo.
Oh, okay.
You may have heard of it.
Yes,
Tupelo
I have.
honey. The common name around here for that same tree is called black gum.
Okay, right on.
But
I didn't associate them together, but that's okay, good.
Yep. So we're looking to, maybe not this summer, but maybe into the fall, we might get a product of some honey out of this hive this fall.
That's beautiful.
Pretty exciting.
Is it okay if I get a little close and get a little bit of a close shot?
Move a little closer.
Tell us a little bit about the bee production.
Well, she's learning a lot about the bee biology, but they transport the pollen on their hind legs. And you might be able to see it if you get close enough. If you see yellow on their hind legs, that's what they're carrying back to the hive. And then there's a queen in there that mates with the bees, and then they lay eggs in the different cells. And the pollen and honey are a source of food for the larvae and the new bees that are being reproduced. So it's quite exciting. And like I say, we hope to have a product out of here maybe this fall.
Well, it looks like you have room for a second one. Are you planning on expanding?
Yeah, when she got that table there, it was a table for two, so we may end up with another hive before it's all over.
Nice.
We'll see what happens.
Let's go check out some other habitats.
Let's continue on.
All right. Hello, this is Iolani Haleski, St. Johns County naturalist. I'm out here at Saturiwa Preserve with my friend Mike Adams. I noticed that your pond is a little low, Mike. What's going on with that?
Yeah, as you probably are aware, Iolani, we're in a drought situation this spring of 2020, and this pond, which is normally 10 feet deep, is probably down to about 5 or 6 feet right now.
Wow.
You see these lily pads along the perimeter here, and I got sawgrass over there in the corners that's completely exposed now. I even kind of brought in some small cypress trees, and they're growing pretty good. This was kind of like my giant aquarium experiment. But there's turtles in here, there's frogs in here, of course there's fish, and I just use it as an example where I can bring folks like you and other visitors here that we can talk about what's going on with the water table and what kind of aquatic creatures live in freshwater ponds and the hydrophytic vegetation as well. So I'm hoping that we get some decent rain and this thing comes back up, because we've seen it as high as this stringer here.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely a lot. It's really low.
Yep. Another little side project that I've done out here, you can see in that corner I've installed a wood duck box.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if I've had any wood ducks coming in there or not, but it's certainly available to them if they want to nest here. Those are cavity nesting ducks. And then right next to you there, you're kind of standing in the area, I've established a monarch butterfly way station.
Beautiful.
These monarch butterflies, they migrate back and forth from North America to Mexico. And I planted some milkweed plants here. That's one of their favorite foods, where they can stop and rest and eat.
That's beautiful. Actually, even in this water, I bet you they can come down and get water a little bit easier now.
That's true. Yep.
You know?
Yep. That's exactly right.
Well, let's go check out some more habitats. This is pretty amazing to me to see how low the water is, but we should get some rain pretty soon.
I think you're right.
All
Okay,
right.
Let's go take a look. Well, Iolani, as you know, this is one of the rare carnivorous plants that we have in North Florida here, and this is called the hooded pitcher plant. And you see the kind of hood here that's on the structure of the plant. Here's a blossom here, kind of on their way out.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one of our carnivorous plants, and the stem here is hollow. This green stem is hollow, that's right. And you see the structures there on the one side, those white structures, those are translucent tissue that allows light to come into the tube.
Interesting.
The stem here, and this opening, an insect is attracted to nectar down near the bottom, and this opening they can go in, they'll go down and get some nectar, and then they try to come out to leave, and they got a 50-50 chance of going out the way they came in or trying to get out these windows that are closed.
Why do you think they want to trap the bugs in there?
Well, I mean, part of the nutrition for the plant is taken from the insects that it consumes.
That's right.
But you can see it's also green, so it also goes through photosynthesis,
Sure.
creating chlorophyll. So it's kind of like one of those dual nutritional type plants, but nonetheless, it is considered one of our carnivorous plants here in North Florida.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Mike. Hey, Mike, what do you got here?
Yeah, Ilani, this is one of the feature points here that we have on our trail that goes from the homestead site down to the river. And this is a relic longleaf pine catface. And part of the historic turpentine industry. You see the clay pot there and the troughs that go into the clay pot. The sap would actually run down these troughs into the clay pot here, and then the people would harvest it and take it to almost like a moonshine still, where they would go through a distillation process, and one of the products was turpentine.
Well, now that explains why there's so many moonshine stills around St. John's River.
Could be, yeah, could be.
They could have just been turpentine stills.
I don't know, maybe a little bit of both. That's right, that's right. But typically these were in longleaf pine trees. They produced the type of sap that they wanted for the turpentine. And the catface is kind of like a shallow V,
right?
Kind of like cat's whiskers. I just wanted to stop in this point here. This is a very interesting walk along the boardwalk here through the Hardwood Swamp. It's very mysterious here. And if you listen for just a moment or two, you hear the St. John's River lapping out there along the shoreline, the wind blowing through the trees. You might hear something like a barred owl hooting or a pileated woodpecker, birds like that. It's just an amazing resource here. But you see we have all kinds of different aquatic wetland plants growing in here. We talked about this water hemlock
yep.
here. We have some pickerel weed, the blue flowers down there.
All right, which that's an edible.
Yep, yep.
Hemlock is not.
Spanish moss, of course. Yep. And it's just an amazing habitat. And this type of ecosystem is very supportive for some large wildlife, to include black bears.
Maybe skunk ape.
Maybe, yeah. Let's walk on. Maybe we can smell one.
All right. Hello again. This is Iolani Haleski, St. Johns County naturalist. I'm at Saturiwa Conservation Preserve, and we're actually out on the dock that Mike has on the St. Johns River. You can walk all the way through the swamp and make it right out here on the dock. How's it going, Mike?
Real good, Iolani. Real good.
Yeah,
well,
this is beautiful.
This is the termination of the tour when we have visitors out here, and of course we have about a 350-foot dock out into the St. Johns River, and it's just an amazing resource. This is what's really defined in Northeast Florida, is the St. Johns River. It flows north and it goes through Jacksonville and then turns east and discharges into the Atlantic Ocean over at a place called Mayport.
Okay.
But going this way, it's over 300 miles into the center of the state, going upstream, and it's primarily spring fed. There's a lot of springs that feed into the St. Johns River, and that's its primary freshwater sources. But what's interesting about this resource is it's an estuary. And by that, I mean that it has both saltwater and freshwater species in it, from fish and animals and plants. And it's just an amazing resource, and we have it right in our area here in Northeast Florida.
Yeah, I heard that they're seeing dolphins this far up too.
Yeah, I don't know about dolphins, but there's some freshwater fish in here to include tarpon and striped bass and redfish, stingrays, shrimp, mullet. All these saltwater fish are here. Plus, you have the freshwater species as well.
Maybe I should have said porpoise.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Sorry about that.
But one of the famous animals in the St. Johns River, of course, is the manatee.
Yep.
And that's one of our protected mammals, and this is a warm-blooded mammal that migrates up and down the river here, and in the wintertime, they go in the springs. But this time of year, in the spring and summer, they're migrating up and down the river looking for mates and establishing territories and doing what manatees do. Now, because of the hurricanes in 16 and 17, a lot of the eelgrass along the shoreline shallows here has been impacted. Okay. And that's like a buffet for manatees.
Right.
So I'm afraid we probably aren't going to see many manatees until that eelgrass recovers.
That's right.
But what's interesting about the St. Johns River from a historical aspect is there was a very famous naturalist that came through this area in 1774. From that way, going down towards Palatka, down as far south as beyond Sanford. his name was William Bartram.
That's right.
And he was a naturalist, and he was documenting the resources, plants, animals, water features, even some of the Native Americans that he was encountering here. And he was keeping a journal. He was also drawing pictures, and he ended up publishing his book called The Travels of William Bartram in about 1791.
Wow.
So it's really exciting for a person like me, a conservation biologist, to be on this tremendous resource here where we have a ½ mile of shoreline protected, and then this amazing St. John's River out here that not only has amazing natural resource value, but cultural resource value as well.
Yeah, this is a really beautiful area. And you were telling me that Moccasin Branch is right up here in this area between the telephone poles, about what, number three out?
Yep, between 3 and 4, and you see how the shoreline curves there.
Yep.
That area is owned by St. John's River Water Management District. That's called Deep Creek Conservation Area. And there's a watershed called Moccasin Branch that goes up, and then a little bit further down this cove is Deep Creek. That's right. And that goes up and goes underneath 207 and goes as far as Flagler Estates.
Something else I'm noticing is you're the only dock in this area until you get over to McCullough Creek over here.
Yep, I believe I'm the farthest most dock in eastern St. Johns County, southeastern St. Johns County, on the eastern shore of the river in St. Johns County.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thanks for showing us around. This is such a beautiful property. Is there any way that if somebody would like to come out and do a tour or something?
Oh yeah. We have a Facebook site called Saturiwa Conservation Area. Check that out, and I do some interesting things during the week on that would talk about some plants and animals that we might be encountering during a particular season. And yeah, it's possible to get a private tour out here. Just reach out to me by phone or on the email site and make arrangements, and we can schedule something to meet your group's needs.
Sounds